In this chapter, we are going to discuss the diffraction of light. Now, in the previous unit, we had covered the interference of light. So, what is interference? It is nothing but the superposition of more than or equal to two waves. So, now we will see what is diffraction of light. First of all, we will see what we had already studied in +1 +2 class. We consider the rectilinear propagation of light. So there we had studied that light, it always travels in a straight line, and that property of the light is the rectilinear propagation of light. So as per the rules of geometrical optics that we have studied, that we study in +1 +2 class, so that is geometric optics. So according to the rules of geometric optics, light travels in straight line, and this property of the light is called as rectilinear propagation of light. Hence, the light should cast a well-defined and distinct shadow of an object which is placed in its path. So let's say there is some object which is placed in the path of the light. So this is the light which is coming from the source, and this is the obstacle which is placed in the path of the light. So if the light, it travels in straight line, so this light, it is obstructed by this obstacle. So this light, it should cast a well defined and a very sharp shadow on the screen. So the shadow, it should be very sharp, as the light, it travels in straight line. So the light which is hitting the obstacle, it will be obstructed, it will not be allowed to fall on the screen, whereas the light which is not obstructed by any obstacle, it will easily pass and it will fall on the screen. So the shadow which is formed on the screen, it will be well defined and it will have sharp edges. So the edges of the shadow, it should be sharp according to the rectilinear propagation of light. Hence the light, it should cast a well defined and distinct shadow of an object which is placed in its path. That is, no light should reach into the regions of shadow, which means that no light, it should reach in this region where there is shadow. So this region, it is called as the geometrical shadow of the object. So it is the geometrical shadow region. So the same thing, it happens with the aperture. So here we had obstacle, and the second diagram over here, this is also the obstacle which is placed in the path of the light. Now what is the difference? Here the light waves, the light rays, they are parallel to each other, but here the light rays, they are not parallel to each other. So when this happens, then a well defined image or well defined shadow is formed on the screen. Now the size of the shadow, it will be larger as compared to the size of the object. So this is because the light, it is not traveling parallel to, the light waves, they are not parallel to each other. So this is the case of a light ray which is having plane wavefront. So the wavefront of the light is plane. Here the wavefront of the light is spherical. So you have already studied what are the wavefronts and what are spherical, plane and cylindrical wavefronts in your +2 class. So this light over here which is shown, it has plane wavefront, and this light, it has spherical wavefront. So the shadow which is formed in the second case, it will have a larger size as compared to the size of the object. So the light which is falling on the obstacle, it will be completely obstructed, whereas the light which is not obstructed by the obstacle, it will easily pass and will fall on the screen. So A prime, B prime, it is the region of geometrical shadow. So in this region, shadow should be formed, and the shadow should be well defined and it should be distinct. So this is because of the rectilinear propagation of light. Now the same thing, it happens with the aperture. Now what is aperture? It is the small opening. So here we have shown aperture. So this is the small opening. Now light rays, they fall on this aperture, and the light rays which are not obstructed by the obstacle, they will easily pass and will fall on the screen, whereas the light which is obstructed by these parts. So these are the hindrance, these are the obstacles. So the light, it will not pass through these obstacles. So light will be obstructed. Some part of the light will pass and will fall on the screen, and some part of the rays, they will be obstructed and will not fall on the screen. So this region over here where the light it falls on the screen, it will be completely bright, and the region where no light falls, it will be completely dark. So that will be the geometrical shadow region, and here you will get the bright spot. So same thing has been shown with the spherical wavefront. So this was the plane wavefront. So, and this is the example of the spherical wavefront when the light from a point source, it is falling on the aperture. So you can see that the region on the screen where the light it falls on the screen, so that region it will be bright, and the region where no light falls on the screen, it will be completely dark. So this is the case for the rectilinear propagation of light. So this should happen that a well-defined shadow, or you can say a well-defined bright spot, it should be formed on the screen. But upon careful observation, it is seen that edges of the shadow, the edges that we had said that edges, they should be sharp according to this property of the light, because light it travels in the straight line. But upon careful observation, it is seen that edges of the shadow, they are not completely sharp. So on carefully observing the shadow region, or you can say the bright spot on the screen, so upon careful observation, it is seen that the edges of the shadow, they are not completely sharp, and it is seen that there are dark and bright fringes formed near the edges. So the edges that we were talking about earlier, that the edges, they should be completely sharp according to this rectilinear propagation of light property. So it is seen that these edges, they are not completely sharp. So in fact, the dark and bright fringes, they are observed near to the edges of the shadow. So near to the point A and to the point B, it is seen that fringes, dark and bright fringes, they are observed. It is also observed that as size of the aperture or the obstacle, so this is the obstacle and this is the aperture. So it is observed that as the size of the aperture or the obstacle is decreased, so as the size of the obstacle or that of the aperture, it is decreased, the fringes that are formed, these dark and bright fringes, these fringes, they become more and more distinct. That is, these fringes, they become more and more prominent when the size of the aperture or obstacle, it is comparable to the wavelength of the incident light. So this is the incident light and it has particular wavelength. Now as we decrease the size of the obstacle or the size of the aperture, it is seen that the dark and bright fringes which are formed near to the edges of the shadow, so those fringes, they become more and more distinct as the size of the obstacle or the aperture is decreased. And it is seen that when the size of the aperture or obstacle is comparable to the wavelength of the incident light. So when it becomes comparable, almost equal to the wavelength of incident light, the fringes, they cover practically the entire shadow region. So this whole shadow region is entirely covered with the dark and bright fringes when the size of the aperture or the obstacle, it is comparable to the wavelength of incident light. Or you can say, in simple language, you can say that light, it bends around the corners. So according to the rectilinear propagation of light property, no light should reach in this geometrical shadow region. In this geometrical shadow region, no light should reach practically according to this property of light, because light, it travels in straight line. But it is seen that when the size of the obstacle or the aperture, it is comparable to the wavelength of the incident light, the fringes, they cover the entire shadow region. This shadow region is entirely covered with dark and the bright fringes, which means that the light, it has bent around the corners of the obstacle. So practically, according to this property of light, there should not be any light present in this shadow region. So this region, it should be completely dark, but practically it is seen that dark and bright fringes, they are observed in this shadow region when the size of the aperture or the obstacle, it is comparable to the wavelength of the incident light, which means that the light, it has managed to reach this geometrical shadow region, or you can say in more simple way that the light, it has bent around the corners of the obstacle. So in simple language, we say that light bends around the corners, and this phenomena of the light is called as diffraction. In simple language, we can say that when the size of the opaque obstacle or aperture, is small enough and is comparable to the wavelength of incident light, the light bends around the corners. So when this condition is reached, that when the size of the obstacle or aperture, it is comparable to the wavelength of the incident light, the light, it bends around the corners, and this is because dark and bright fringes, they are observed in the geometrical shadow region. Now if the opening is much larger than the light's wavelength, so when the opening, or you can say when the size of the obstacle or the aperture, it is much larger than the wavelength of the light, then the bending is almost unnoticeable. So in that case, when the size of the obstacle or the aperture, it is larger than the wavelength of the light, then the bending, it happens, but that bending is almost unnoticeable. So this is why diffraction is not observed in daily life. So now in daily life, what we have, so we have windows, we have doors whose openings, or you can say the obstacles, their size is much greater than the wavelength of the visible light. So in daily life, we observe various shadows, but we do not observe diffraction in daily life. So to obtain diffraction, we have seen that the condition of diffraction is that size of the obstacle or the aperture, it should be comparable to the wavelength of incident light. But in daily life, the aperture or the obstacles that we have, for example the windows or the doors, so the size of the windows, doors, or any other obstacle that we have in daily life, their size is much greater than the wavelength of the visible light. So the light which is coming from sun, it is the visible light, and it has a range. The visible light, it has a range of wavelength from 4000 Armstrong to 7000 Armstrong, whereas the size of the obstacles or the apertures in daily life, they are of the order of 1 meters. So you can say the size of those apertures or obstacles in daily life, they are much greater than the wavelength of the visible light. So therefore the bending of the light, it is almost unnoticeable, and this is only the reason why diffraction is not observed in daily life. The phenomenon of bending of light. Now we are saying what is the definition of diffraction. The phenomenon of bending of light around the corner or edges and spreading into the geometrical shadow region of obstacle or aperture. So the bending of light around the corners or the edges, and the light, it spreads into the geometrical shadow region of the obstacle or the aperture placed in its path. So this bending of light around the corners is called as diffraction. Now the formation of alternate bright and dark fringes on the screen. So this we will see how dark and bright fringes are obtained in case of diffraction. So for time being we are just saying that dark and bright fringes, they are observed on the screen. So the reason of this formation of bright and dark fringes, it will be seen in the upcoming lectures. So for time being we are just saying that there are bright and dark fringes formed on the screen, and this pattern of obtaining bright and dark fringes due to the bending of light, it is called as diffraction pattern. Now we are going to see what is the difference between interference and diffraction. So interference we have already covered in the previous unit. Now what is interference? It occurs between two separate wavefronts originating from two coherent sources. So in interference, for example, in Young's double slit experiment, there we saw that we have two slits from where we have two coherent sources and two separate wavefronts, they arise from these two coherent sources. So interference, it occurs between two separate wavefronts. So two separate wavefronts are present, and these two separate wavefronts, they superimpose with each other, and interference is observed. On the other hand, what is diffraction? So in diffraction, the interference, it occurs between the secondary wavelets. So we will see what are the secondary wavelets in the upcoming lectures. So in diffraction, interference occurs between the secondary wavelets which originate from different points of the same wavefront. So Huygens principle you have already studied in your +1 +2 class. So there we say that every point on a wavefront, it acts as a source of secondary wavelet. So that is the secondary wavelet. Every point on a wavefront, it acts as a source of secondary wavelet. And when the interference, it occurs from the light which is coming from those secondary wavelets, diffraction is observed. So we will see how diffraction, it occurs from the secondary wavelets in the upcoming lectures. So interference, it occurs between the secondary wavelets which are originating from the different points of the same wavefronts. So this is nothing but the Huygens principle. Now in interference pattern, all the maxima are of same intensity. So in interference pattern we observe maxima and minima. So in interference pattern, all the maxima which are obtained, they are of same intensity, whereas in diffraction the intensity of the central maxima is maximum, and the intensity, it goes on decreasing as we move away from the central maxima. So here the intensity is not uniform. The intensity of the central maxima is maximum of all, and as you move away from the center of the screen, the intensity, it keeps on decreasing. Now third difference is that the fringes, they are usually equally spaced. So the fringe width is usually constant in case of interference pattern, whereas this does not occur in diffraction. Fringes, they are never equally spaced. Now in interference pattern, the minima that we obtain is completely dark. So the minima, it is perfectly dark, whereas in diffraction the minima, it is not completely dark. So intensity, it reduces, but it is not completely dark. Now we are going to see what are the types of diffraction. The diffraction phenomenon is usually divided into two classes. First is the Fresnel diffraction and second one is the Fraunhofer diffraction. So we will see what is Fresnel diffraction and what is Fraunhofer diffraction, and we will see what are their differences. So the first difference between the Fresnel and Fraunhofer diffraction is that in case of Fresnel diffraction, the source of the light and the screen. So in diffraction we have a source we have obstacle or aperture, and we have screen. So these three components, they remain the same in both Fresnel and Fraunhofer diffraction. But what is the difference? That in case of Fresnel diffraction, the source of the light, so this is the source of the light S, so this source of light and the screen, this is the screen, so source of the light and the screen, they are at finite distance from the diffracting element. So what is diffracting element? It can be either obstacle or aperture which is placed in the path of the light. So that is called as diffracting element. So diffraction, it occurs due to the presence of obstacle or aperture. Therefore they are called as diffracting element. Now in case of Fresnel diffraction, the source of the light and the screen, they are at a finite distance from the obstacle or the aperture. So this distance of source from the aperture and the distance of the screen from the aperture or obstacle is finite. Whereas in Fraunhofer diffraction, the source and the screen, they are at infinite distance from the diffracting element. So the distance in case of Fraunhofer diffraction, it is not finite. The source and the screen, they are at infinite distance from the obstacle or the aperture. Now the second difference in Fresnel diffraction. In Fresnel diffraction, no lenses are used to produce diffraction pattern. So in Fresnel diffraction, no lens is used. Whereas in Fraunhofer diffraction, generally two convergent lenses are used. So one lens is used to make the incoming light parallel, and the other is used to focus the parallel diffracted rays on the screen. So the first figure which is shown over here, it is the case of Fresnel diffraction. As you can see, we have a source and we have screen and we have aperture. Now light from the source, it is emitted from the source, it falls on the aperture, and after diffraction it falls on the screen. So you can see that there is no lens used in this diffraction. In this Fresnel diffraction, no lens has been used. Now the second diagram which is shown, it is of Fraunhofer diffraction. Now in Fraunhofer diffraction, we have said that the source and the screen, they are at infinite distance. So when the source, it is at infinite distance, means that the light which is coming from this source, it will be almost parallel. The light which is falling on the aperture or the obstacle, it will be almost parallel rays. So this is what we mean by the infinite distance of the source from the obstacle. So first of all, practically we do not have parallel rays. So practically we cannot say the infinite distance. We cannot manage to have infinite distance of the source, and we cannot manage to have infinite distance of the screen from the aperture. So what we do is we take two convergent lenses. One lens is used to make the incoming light parallel. So the source, as it is placed at the focus of the lens, so the light which is coming from the source, it will be parallel to each other. So parallel rays, they will fall on the obstacle or the aperture, and the second lens will be used to focus these parallel rays on the screen. So in case of Fraunhofer diffraction, generally two convergent lenses are used. One is to make incoming light parallel, and other is to focus the parallel diffracted rays on the screen. Now third important difference is that the wavefront which is arriving at the diffracting element is either spherical or cylindrical. In case of Fresnel diffraction, the wavefront of the light which is arriving at the diffracting element, the wavefront of the light which is arriving at the obstacle or the aperture, it is either spherical or cylindrical. So here I have shown the spherical wavefront. So this is the point source. so it is at a finite distance from the aperture, so there will be spherical wavefront which is emitted from this source. So the wavefront which is arriving at the diffracting element, the wavefront which is reaching the aperture or the obstacle, it is either spherical or it can be cylindrical. Whereas in case of Fraunhofer diffraction, the wavefront which is arriving at the aperture or the obstacle, it is plane. As you can see, we have parallel rays which are falling on the aperture, so the wavefront of these rays will be plane. So it will have a plane wavefront. So the third point in Fraunhofer diffraction is that the wavefront which is arriving at the aperture or obstacle is plane. Now fourth important point is that the phase of the secondary wavelets is not the same at all the points in the plane of the aperture. Now this is the plane of the aperture. So this will be the plane of the aperture. Now what is the point we have written? That phase of secondary wavelets. So here every point on the wavefront, it acts as a source of secondary wavelets. This is the Huygens principle. Every point on the primary wavefront, it acts as a source of secondary wavelets. So this is how the wave propagation occurs. Now the phase of secondary wavelets, it is not the same at all the points in the plane of aperture. So at all these points on the plane of the aperture, the phase of the secondary wavelet will not be the same. Whereas in case of Fraunhofer diffraction, we have a plane wavefront. So for plane wavefront, every point on this plane wavefront, it will have same phase. So phase of the secondary wavelets is same at all points in the plane of the aperture. So this is the plane of the aperture, and every point on this plane of aperture, the phase of the secondary wavelets, it will be same, and this is because the wavefront that we had drawn over here, it is spherical or it can be cylindrical in case of Fresnel diffraction, and this is why the phase, it is not same on the plane of the aperture. Now we are going to see what is the reason behind diffraction. So the theory was given by Huygens and Fresnel. So it is called as Huygens-Fresnel's theory of diffraction. Now what is Huygens principle? This you have already studied. According to Huygens principle, every point on a wavefront, it acts as a source of secondary wavefront. So how the wave it propagates? So when this is the wavefront which is emitted by this point source capital S, and a point source, it always emits a spherical wavefront. So this is a portion of the spherical wavefront which is drawn. Now every point on this wavefront, so here I have drawn 4 points. This is the actual source capital S, and we have drawn 4 points. So we have taken 4 points on this wavefront. So every point on this wavefront, it will act as a source of secondary wavefront. So this point, it will also emit wavefront in the forward direction. So it will emit wavefront that will be in spherical shape, which is shown by dotted line. Similarly, the second point on the wavefront, it will also act as a source of secondary wavefront. It will emit light in the forward direction. So we have shown the spherical wavefront by the dotted line. Similarly, third and fourth point, they will also emit the secondary wavefronts. So this is how the light is propagated. So this is the Huygens principle, that every point on the wavefront acts as a source of secondary wavefronts, and these are called as secondary wavelets. So you can call them as secondary wavefronts, or you can call them as secondary wavelets. So these small spherical wavefronts which are emitted from these points on the primary wavefront. So this is the primary wavefront, and secondary wavelets are emitted from all the points on this primary wavefront. Now when a wavefront is made to incident on a slit, so in diffraction what we do is we place an obstacle or we place a small opening or aperture in the path of the light. Now when a wavefront is made to incident on a slit, most of it is obstructed by the slit. So when this wavefront it is made to fall on a slit, most of the wavefront it will be obstructed by the slit. Now the small portion of the light, the small portion of the wavefront it will be exposed. The most of the wavefront it will be obstructed, whereas small portion of the wavefront it is exposed. So let's say we have a slit which is placed over here. Now this is the AB slit. So only AB portion of the wavefront it will be exposed, whereas the all other portion of the wavefront it will be obstructed. So small portion AB of the wavefront is exposed. This is equivalent to a string of coherent point sources. So this is the slit that we have placed in the path of the primary wavefront. So every point on the wavefront, as we have said according to Huygens principle, every point on the wavefront it acts as a source of secondary wavelets. So when this wavefront it will reach the slit, when this primary wavefront it will reach this slit, so when it will fall on this slit, so every point on that wavefront, or you can say every point on the plane of the slit, it will act as a string of coherent point sources. So this concept it comes from Huygens principle, that every point on the wavefront it acts as a source of secondary wavelets. So light is emitted, spherical wavefronts are emitted from every point on the wavefront. So when this primary wavefront it will reach the slit, so this is an aperture, this is a narrow opening. So when this wavefront it will reach this slit, so every point on that wavefront, or you can say every point on the plane of the slit, it will act as a coherent point sources. So every point on this slit it will act as this, it will be equivalent to a string of coherent point sources. So this will be equivalent to a string of coherent point sources. So this was the Huygens principle. Now what Fresnel suggested? Fresnel he suggested that the intensity at any point on the screen. So this is the slit that we have placed and we will have a screen. Now Fresnel he suggested that the intensity at any point on the screen it is obtained by summing the intensity of the wavelets. We have to sum the intensities of the wavelets which are originating from those point sources. So according to Huygens principle, every point on the slit, so this is another diagram which we have drawn, this is the slit and this is the screen. Now this is the plane wavefront which is falling on the slit, which is a narrow opening. So every point on the slit, so here I have drawn 4 points, so there can be infinite number of points. So every point on the slit it will act as a point source. Now light will be emitted from every point source. So light it will be emitted from every point on the wavefront. So light will be emitted. Now that light will be emitted in the form of spherical wavefronts. As we have seen over here, the secondary wavelets they are in spherical shape because these are the point sources. Every point on the wavefront it acts as a point source. So the wavefront which is emitted it will be in spherical shape. So every point, this point is also a part of the wavefront, this point is also on the wavefront, this point is also on the wavefront. So these are the point sources. As we have said, they act as coherent point sources. So if these are the point sources, they will also emit the wavefront which is in spherical shape. So spherical wavefronts they are emitted in all the directions. Now these wavefronts they will travel in this space and then they will fall on the screen. These wavefronts, these secondary wavelets, they will travel and they will fall on the different parts of the screen. So Fresnel, he said that the intensity at any point on the screen, so let's say you are finding the intensity at this point P on the screen. So intensity at any point on the screen is obtained by summing the intensity of the wavelets, by superimposing the intensities of these wavelets. So the light from this point source, it will also reach P point, and the light from this point source, it will also reach this same point, and similarly the light from every point source, it will reach this capital P point on the screen. So the intensity at any point on the screen, it is obtained by summing the intensities of the wavelets. So by summing the intensities of the wavelets, or you can say by superimposing the light waves which are originating from these wavelets. So we have to superimpose the light which is emitted from these point sources. So we have to sum the intensities of the wavelets which are originating from those point sources at that slit and superimposing on the screen. So we have to superimpose the light waves which are coming from all the points on the slit. So these points, they will act as coherent point sources. Thus diffraction pattern is obtained at the screen due to the interference of secondary wavelets. So these are the secondary wavelets, these are the spherical secondary wavelets which are emitted, and the reason behind this emission of secondary wavelets is the Huygens principle. So the interference it occurs between the secondary wavelets, and hence diffraction pattern is formed on the screen. So this is the reason of formation of the diffraction pattern, or you can say the reason behind the bending of the light. Now since the coherent sources, they are located at different distances from any point on the screen, so you can see the distance of these point sources from this capital P point is different. All these point sources, they are at a different distance from this point on the screen. Therefore the waves which reach this point, they differ in phase. So the phase of these waves which are reaching this point P, they will be different, and this is because they are present at a different location. They are present at different distances from this point P on the screen. Their superimposition produces interference pattern with maxima and minima formation. Hence, due to difference in phase, we will obtain the maxima and minima on the screen. Therefore diffraction of light is due to the superposition of waves from coherent sources. So we have superimposition of the waves from these coherent sources of the same wavefront. So these coherent sources, these are a part of the same wavefront after the wavefront is obstructed by obstacle or aperture. So diffraction of light is due to the superposition of the waves from coherent sources of the same wavefront. So keep in mind, these coherent sources, they are of the same wavefront after the wavefront is obstructed by the obstacle or aperture. So this is the reason behind diffraction of light.